There are truths that don't just hurt, they undo you. They rip through the soul like a slow, precise knife. Not with violence, but with clarity. Truths that, once seen, leave no way back. They shatter every fairy tale you were raised on. They rip the mask off words like soulmate, forever, unconditional love. But here's the paradox. It's in these painful truths that your freedom begins. And the first, most excruciating of them all, women do not love the way you love. They never have. And as long as you operate under the illusion that they do, you will bleed. Not from betrayal, but from your own blindness. You're not suffering because she changed. You're suffering because the fantasy you built, the belief that she loved you the same way you loved her, collapsed. And what hurts isn't her departure. It's that everything you thought was shared wasn't. Schopenhauer saw it clearly, and he didn't whisper it. He didn't soften it for your feelings. He said, "What you call romantic love is a trick, a well-designed mechanism to ensure species survival. A bait, not an agreement, not a mutual dream, not a shared soul." While you were writing poetry in your mind, she was assessing conditions. While you were planning a life, she was scanning for safety. And not because she's evil, but because she's wired to. That's the dark truth. Not that she's malicious, but that she doesn't even realize her instincts are leading the dance. You offered everything: loyalty, protection, tears, dreams, expecting eternity in return. But her instinct doesn't respond to purity. It responds to function. And when you're no longer useful in her silent equation, her attraction disappears. No warning, no explosion, just distance. And if this content is making sense to you, then click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. You keep asking yourself, what did I do wrong? You replay every moment, every sacrifice, every late-night conversation, every promise you took as sacred. But it wasn't your actions that failed. It was your understanding of the rules. Because you entered the game thinking it was about devotion, but she was playing a game of selection. You thought loyalty would make you irreplaceable. But her instinct isn't wired for loyalty. It's wired for evaluation. When her biology senses a shift, when someone else appears with more perceived power, status, or future potential, she doesn't think it through. She doesn't debate it. Her attraction simply fades, and you feel it before she even speaks. The slow death of warmth, the delay in replies, the way her eyes stop searching for yours. You tell yourself it's just a phase, that if you love harder, she'll come back. But Schopenhauer would tell you, she's already gone, because what you interpreted as love was never built on what you gave. It was built on what you represented. You thought you were building a sanctuary. She was walking through a temporary shelter. And when the storm passed, so did she. That's what no one tells you, that you can give her everything, and it still won't be enough. Not because you're not enough, but because you're giving the wrong thing. She doesn't feel secure through emotion. She feels secure through position, your gifts, your words, your openness. If they come from a place of desperation, of trying to prove your worth, they register not as value, but as weakness. And when she senses weakness, she doesn't decide to leave. Her biology starts pulling her elsewhere. You're left in ruins, confused, still believing that love is a promise, not a process. But for her, it's a process, always moving, always assessing. And when you no longer meet the need, you're no longer part of the story, not because she hates you, but because instinct made the call. And instinct doesn't negotiate, it just moves on. You didn't fall apart because she left. You fell apart because you thought love was supposed to last. Because you were told, since you were a boy, that if you just gave your best, if you stayed true, if you waited long enough, she would stay. You believed that love meant forever, that good men were rewarded, that being available, emotionally open, and honest would keep her close. But no one told you the most important thing. She was never taught the same rules. You were dreaming about permanence. She was responding to a shifting emotional algorithm. one that tracks advantage, safety, status, movement. And here's the devastating part. She may not even know she's doing it. This isn't conscious cruelty. It's unconscious selection. It's not betrayal. It's biology. Schopenhauer didn't sugarcoat it. What you think of as love is often camouflage, a narrative to cover instinct, a decorative veil over primal impulses. You gave her everything, not because you were weak, but because you believed that's how love works. But to her instinct, your everything became too much. Because instinct isn't seeking devotion, it's seeking leverage. A man who is not only present, but powerful, not only kind, but untouchable in his direction. And when you lost that, when you started orbiting her, trying to fix, to prove, to reassure, you lost the very thing that drew her to you in the first place. Your center, that invisible gravity that said, I am whole. With or without you, you thought love would reward sacrifice. But in this game, sacrifice without boundaries leads not to intimacy, but invisibility. You didn't lose her because you failed. You lost her because you forgot yourself. You believed she was the story, but you were. You forgot that your energy was the prize, that your purpose was the foundation. And when she left, you mourned not just the loss of her, but the loss of you inside her. That's the truth no one wants to admit, but Schopenhauer did. Most men break here, in this exact place, when the illusion collapses and the fairy tale burns, and they're left staring at the ashes of what they thought was real. Some become bitter, angry, closed off to connection. Others become addicted to chasing, fixing, seeking someone who will finally get it right. But Schopenhauer didn't suggest either. He didn't tell you to hate. He told you to see, to stop worshipping an ideal that was built on blindness, to stop expecting from her what she was never wired to give. Because the real heartbreak isn't her departure. It's realizing she was never dreaming the same dream. You built a cathedral. She needed a bridge. You offered permanence. She responded to function. And now that she's gone, you don't just miss her. You miss the version of yourself you built around her. The man who thought devotion was currency, who thought effort could manufacture love, who believed that sacrificing your truth would earn you safety. But now you know. And that knowledge, that sharp surgical truth, it stings, but it also liberates. Because the man who has seen this, who has stared into the illusion and not flinched, that man is no longer naive. He is no longer programmable. He is no longer available to every beautiful face that whispers forever. He watches. He discerns. He chooses, not from anger, but from alignment. Because love without clarity is slavery, and clarity, even when it hurts, is freedom. The woman who walks beside you now will not be your identity. She will not be your savior. She will not be your home. You are your own home now. And from that place, you can finally offer love that is whole, not desperate, not dependent, not blind. Schopenhauer's dark truth isn't the end of romance. It's the beginning of real self-respect, the kind that doesn't ask to be chosen. It chooses, the kind that doesn't collapse when left. It remains, because the man who sees clearly can finally walk freely. You don't need to become bitter. You don't need to swear off love. You don't need to wear armor around your heart. You just need to stop forgetting who you are. Because the darkest truth Schopenhauer offered wasn't about women. It was about men. It was about how easily they give themselves away. Not just their time, not just their energy, but their entire identity, in pursuit of connection, in pursuit of love, in pursuit of a fantasy that never belonged to them in the first place. You were never meant to orbit her. You were never meant to hand her the keys to your purpose. You were never meant to prove your worth through sacrifice. You were meant to build, to lead, to stand, not chase. She is not your mission. You are. And the moment you remember that, the whole game changes. You no longer beg to be seen. You become undeniable. You no longer shrink to be accepted. You expand until only those who can hold you remain. You no longer crumble when she walks away. You return to your throne, because that's where you belonged all along. This is not about hating women. This is not about rejecting love. It's about reclaiming sovereignty. She will choose you only when you choose yourself. Not halfway, not in words, but in embodied presence. The man who stops idealizing, who stops handing out his crown for the price of a kiss. That man becomes untouchable because he has nothing to lose. He is no longer waiting to be loved. He is already full, and in that fullness, he loves clean, without need, without obsession, without illusion. That's the man Schopenhauer wanted you to become. Not a cynic, not a monk. A man who no longer kneels to a dream that never saw him. A man who walks alone if necessary, but never lost again. If this resonated, take a moment to subscribe. Drop a comment below, not for the algorithm, but to mark this chapter in your journey. If you made it this far, you're not just watching, you're remembering, returning, reclaiming your inner ground. This wasn't rage, it was revelation, and revelation always comes with a cost, the illusion that had to burn. So trust that the video YouTube shows you next, the one appearing now, is not random. It's the next doorway, the next level, the next piece of you. We'll see you in the next depth. Depthoria continues.